Yes, ma'am.
I will be
How are you?
with
I'm good.
myself,
I'm just giving us a moment to get
and I will
settled
hold
in.
myself
Okay.
like a newborn baby child. I will be gentle with myself. I will be gentle with myself, and I will hold myself like a newborn baby child. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with my heart, and I will hold my heart like a newborn baby child. I will be tender with my heart. I will be tender with my heart, and I will hold my heart like a newborn baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. I will be easy on myself. I will be easy on myself, and I love myself like a newborn baby child. I will be easy on myself. I will be easy on myself, and I love myself like a baby child. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. Now I know I am gentle with myself. I am gentle with myself, and I hold myself like a newborn baby child. I am gentle with myself. I am gentle with myself, and I hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I rock myself like a newborn baby child. And I hold myself like a newborn baby child. And I love myself like a newborn baby child.
Okay, let me admit the waiting room here. See who else is there. That was the last one, I think. That was Hetty. Good evening, everybody. I am going to take a moment and introduce you to our special guest today, and then I'm going to let you see her. But right now, the unveiling is to come. Dottie Gandy is one of my favorite people in the world. I've known her almost 2 decades, I think. She's a writer, she's a businesswoman, she's a public speaker, she's a motivator, and she's the reason I'm in the Hill Country, at Unity of the Hill Country. And so I'll tell you more about that when she comes to speak, whenever she's in, April 26th, she's gonna come down and, no, she's not coming down, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do 2 things at once and I'm not doing it well. She is going to come down, stop sharing, that's what I'm trying to do. Dottie is going to be our guest speaker online, in our online format on April 26th. But tonight, she is going to present to us. I'm sorry, I'm still getting my little fingers down on exactly where I want to be. But she's going to talk to us about self-care for caregivers. She's a brilliant woman and she has such a wide variety of experience, and I know you're really going to love getting to know her. Dottie, you look beautiful tonight.
I went and put lipstick on for the first time in 3 weeks as a sequestered senior. So that's my gift to you. I have lipstick on.
Looks great.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I have to tell you, when Beverly says I'm the reason that she wound up there in Kerrville, I have mixed feelings about that, because the good news is you got her. The bad news is I've seen her once, maybe twice in the time you've been there. But I'm so happy for you, and I'm so happy for Kerrville. And I want to say thank you to those who are taking the time to tune in tonight. The topic is care for the caregiver, and it's an interesting topic because to me, one of the scariest statistics about caregiving says it is not unusual for the caregiver to die before the person that he or she is caring for. The reason is you tend to surrender care of self because you become so involved in caring for another person. So we cannot do for another that which we're not willing to do for ourselves. And as most of us know, over the past 6 weeks or so, we're giving a whole new definition to what it means to be a caregiver. And as someone who has spent her life as a type A personality, whose energy and happiness comes from being around other people, you can imagine the adjustment that being a sequestered senior has been a huge challenge for me. And so I'm finally learning how to take care of this type A personality during a time that is strange for all of us. And let me just say before we continue, to all of you who are dealing with circumstances as a result of the virus that you've never had to deal with before, my thoughts, my prayers are with all of us. Every day we tend to be learning something new about, this is the way I used to do it, but clearly that's not available. So I'm learning new ways to do it. And I think it's important that we also experiment with new ways to take care of ourselves. And as Beverly mentioned, I got to spend almost 5 years, a little 5 years plus, with a spouse who had Alzheimer's. And it came right at the peak of a career. And so I spent a lot of time saying rather sternly to God, why me, why this, why now? And the only answer I ever got from God was, why not? And so I've tried to look at what we're doing now with the pandemic and the coronavirus as all of us have our own way of saying, why me, why this, why now? And it's kind of challenging to come up with an answer for God when God says, why not? And so a lot of our learning is just in the day-to-day adjustments that we're making now. But my prediction is 1 to 2 to 6 months after this virus sequestering is all over with, it will only be then that we can start to see with more clarity the blessings rather than the cursings that we may want to say are coming out of this now. So when we say, why me, why this, why now, I want to lay the groundwork for supporting you in figuring out how to say, why not? It may not be something we can say now, but an analogy that I'm always reminded of, I spent 17 years working for a man named Dr. Stephen Covey. He wrote that little book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that probably sold a gazillion copies. But Stephen Covey used to say to us, when we would say, why me, why this, why now, why not? Stephen told this story. He said, you know, if you get on an airplane in Austin, Texas, and your destination is New York City, what you don't know, but what the pilot and the crew knows, 90% of the time you are flying off course. Now, it may be because there's weather in the area or too much other air traffic in the area. And thank goodness the pilot doesn't say to us every 2 minutes, well, folks, we're no longer headed to New York anymore because we had to go over here to avoid this hailstorm, and then we're going to have to. So we don't need to know all of that. But the good news is that the pilot knows that when he or she takes off from Austin, Texas, there's a 99% chance that they're going to land in New York City. And I think that's similar to what, or I think we can make the same analogy now. It seems to me, from my perspective, that we're flying way off course right now. Show me where I was supposed to be prepared for this. Who wrote down all of this stuff? And now, how in the world am I supposed to take care of me? And if any of you listening to this happen to also be a caregiver taking care of somebody else, then as you well know, it's so easy to become very discouraged, and it may feel like God is working against us. So here's the way I want to help us turn the corner on that. Some of the stuff you won't hear me talk about regarding my husband, Tom Gandy, when I speak with you later this month, is primarily that topic will talk about the role of Unity's 5 principles in surviving, or I might even say thriving, my role as a caregiver. But I want to back up a little bit and tell you about Tom Gandy before all of this happened. Now, you'll hear more about this, but Tom and I actually met and dated at Baylor. But Tom was headed off to seminary school, and I was cut out to be a lot of things, but a Baptist minister's wife never made the list. And so I did the only thing that a person in my circumstances could do, and I married a Texas Aggie. Well, 28 years after Tom and I graduated from Baylor, both of us had married, we had raised families, we had subsequently divorced, and then came back together. I spent most of my adult life in Washington, D.C. Tom was back in Texas. And so 6 months after re-meeting, I moved back to Texas and married Tom. Now, Tom stayed in the ministry about 5 years, and then he did the one thing his father told him he should never, never do. His father was an oil field geologist, and he said, Tom, whatever you do, don't go to the oil field for a career. So, of course, when Tom left the ministry, he spent the next 16 years working overseas for Halliburton, running some of their ventures there. But then when he came back from that, he was a medical sales VP for a medical sales company when he and I re-met. And so I thought, Well, isn't this interesting? This guy that I passed on the first time because he was going to seminary. Wow. Now he's spent all those years in the oil field, and now he's a vice president of sales for a medical supply company. What exactly is this man up to? Well, I had no idea, but we married in 1991, and then in 1996, for Christmas, I got a volume of poetry dedicated to me and our relationship, written by this oil field medical sales VP guy, and totally unbeknownst to me. Tom said that he would wake up in the middle of the night and this poetry would just pour out of him. And he said, the first thing I thought I should do with it, I know Dottie likes Hallmark cards and she buys them all the time because they can say stuff she doesn't know how to say. So he said, I first started out trying to write some verses that would emulate a Hallmark card. But he said way more than that poured out of me. So unbeknownst to me, for 2 years prior to Christmas of 1996, Tom had been writing a volume of poetry. And it was love poetry dedicated to our relationship. Now, sometimes when I share this, every man in the room wants to curse me in case his wife is listening and wants to turn to him and say, so where's the poetry you've written for me? But that's not what this is about. So here's what I thought I would do. I want to share a couple of Tom's poems, and they were written as if it was Tom talking about me, but where I want you to hear it from is what if this is God talking to you. So the first poem I want to read is called an anniversary card. And here's the way this one goes. When spring breezes push early bluebonnets into nodding, and the afternoon sun warms the air for fresh flower smells to melt on your face, I think of our marriage and feel your hand in mine. I experience your shoulder brushing against me, even if you are not there. And again, if I want to use the God analogy, whether you can feel it or not, God's shoulder is brushing against all of us now. So the poem continues, when storm clouds gather, another metaphor, as the sky hurls its tears like bullets and thunder is the only sound, I see your face in the natural flash and know that together is worth every personal risk. Again, what a perfect analogy for what we're dealing with right now. So the poem continues, when small walks of caring errands repeat themselves over and over again as daily tasks of married living, I'm surprised to find a new path made real. A daily task of married living, and I become surprised to find a new path made plain, and surprised again to find a matching path just next to mine. Again, folks, insert God is walking with us on this experience. It may feel like, more often than we would care to admit, as if we have been abandoned spiritually and sort of left to flummox through all of this on our own. But then the poem concludes, and my eyes smile at the mystery that makes the path behind a road ahead. This magic in our living warms me, and I learn to say again what it means to say, I love you. And while for many of us it may be hard to find reasons to turn to God and say, I love you, if we've lost a job, if we've lost a family member, if we're separated from family, if you, like me, are sequestered and you have no idea what the inside of a Target or a Kroger looks like, any more than it's often easy to say, God has left me floundering, but I know better than that, and you do too, and so we just need to keep our eyes on that. And actually, I just saw a thing on the news tonight, and it's timely because it's about tonight. I don't remember the source, but they said we only get full moons that we can actually see from time to time. But the full moon that will be outside tonight, they said, is the brightest and best one of 2020. So if you're wondering if God has abandoned you, or at least has taken his or her eyes off of you for the moment, I think we all need to go outside a bit later tonight and look at the moon and just notice that the same person who gave us or created this coronavirus is also the same person who gave us the full moon. Now, I want to share a second poem that Tom wrote. And this one, he said, was written about 6 months before I received this in December. This one says, it doesn't have a title, it just has a date at the top, August the 5th. It says, I am an unfound man inside a maze, a frightened mind about to panic. Hearing for some clearing in the haze, lungs unlabored, feet unfrantic, heart on hammer, mental mode locked up on dazed. I dare say that many of us, if not using these words, may have had these feelings over the last few weeks. He says, and then your voice I hear, and I am somehow calm, even more so amazed. And so a lot of the stuff that we think God is saying and doing right now, all that means, I think, is that we're not listening to God's voice. And when you listen to God's voice, you're going to hear this very differently. And the poem goes on to say, I'm captured by the thorns and vines of my own growing. They stick my skin and catch my clothes and hold me hostage in a life I had not planned on knowing. Again, none of us are in a life right now that we had planned on knowing. My will's awash, my hopes on hold, and I propose a truce with dreams. Resignation barely showing. And then, Tom says, your touch, I'm going to say, and then God's touch, and endless possibilities are once more flowing. My spirit is a keening child, but I pretend to confidence, as if I have the direction through the wild. I mimic one who has a map, and somehow reading it makes sense. But I'm really like the little guy whose mom moved up another aisle, and now I'm lost. Then your request, and I'm redone. A new made me who had a compass all the while, which I think is another good reminder for us. We may not believe that we have a compass with us right now because the compass will tell us where we're headed. And quite honestly, most of us have no idea on a daily basis where we're headed or where we might wind up. So then he says, however, your soul, then your request, and I'm redone, a new made me who had a compass all the while. Again, if you want to substitute God's message in here, God has given us a compass the whole time. It may be, if you're like me, you haven't used a compass in a very long time, and yet it's going to point to a true north. The last verse says, the truth is, I don't know where I'm bound. That seem familiar now? I make direction, take a bearing, carefully plot the course, then tramp ahead to meet myself inside a circle going around and around. Each day I clone the day before and make sure that insanity is still in force. And I play the role of desperation, hoping that the volume will be turned down. But then he says, you speak to me, you hold me, you ask me something whispered, and suddenly I'm not so lost when I realize you love me and I am found. So while Tom wrote this in 1990, probably 1990 to 1996, as love poetry, when I was talking to Beverly earlier, I had just been rereading some of Tom's poems, and I thought, okay, Tom may have known, or maybe God did, that this poem was not just love poetry from a oil-filled husband to a very surprised wife, but it may have as much relevance today in a different context. So when we want to say, with respect to what's going on with everything right now, why me, why this, why now, I invite you to sit with the question, why not? What is there for me to learn? What is there for me? How can I grow through this? And granted, the questions, the answers may seem a little fuzzy right now, but it's kind of like that pilot who lands in New York. It's only once you've landed that you can go back and see how necessary it was to shift altitudes, shift directions, shift airspeed. It was the only thing that was going to get you safely to New York City. And I would like to suggest that the same is true for us. So, Beverly, I'm tired of talking now. I want to hear from some of these people. I love you guys. I can hardly wait to connect with you again later in the month. But I'm wondering if you have a comment or an insight, not necessarily about what I might have said, but around this topic. What do you look at on a day-to-day basis to let you know that in spite of the virus and our living circumstances, what do you look at that lets you know that God is still very much in control, and especially in your life? See, I can see your names and your muted microphone, so I could just point to anybody like Dave Hubbard and say, Dave, unmute your microphone. Oh, he did. So
I'm unmuting everybody. That way we can.
Beverly's unmuting everybody.
If you
Several
want
are
to be
rolling
muted,
their
you
eyes
can
now,
put yourself
Beverly.
back.
So Dave, let me ask you, any insights that you're learning about your connection with God over what's transpired over the last few weeks, or what may be yet ahead? Mandy, you want to speak up? Dave's not answering my question. So what are you learning about yourself and God's role in all of this, Mandy?
Well, you know, during the day, I just get by with, you know, talking with members of the church and just talking with them and checking up on them. And so far, everyone's been having good health. And that's one sure sign that I know is going in the right direction.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Who else? Somebody else chime in. Heidi, I started to say Heidi, I can see you. Thank you.
Per internet, per Skype, I connect with family in Germany and exchange experiences, what's going on there and what's going on here. But we are all feeling grateful that we are all healthy.
Yes, if being a sequestered senior is my only complaint, I am so far ahead of the curve on this thing because I haven't lost a job. Thank goodness I'm not having to homeschool children. I have two grandsons who are sequestered at A&M doing their studies online. But I think about the parents who are trying to work from home and who have smaller children to take care of and this sort of thing. And I thought maybe being a retired senior is not the worst way to go through this. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Anybody else have a comment or an insight that would benefit all of us?
Well, a common theme that I'm hearing, and I also go along with, is there aren't any amazing, flashing new things to point out the activity of God in our lives. It's all the things I'm used to seeing. A wonderful wife, a couple of wonderful dogs, just the normal things in life that it always reminded me that's part of the essence of God in my life at all times.
What a wonderful perspective, because you look at what's always been working in your life and you're saying, and I've got that now. I have a wonderful wife. I have these dogs. I have my health, whatever that is. Although I'll tell you something funny, Beverly knows about this. There's a group of 7 women who've been together at Unity of Dallas forever. And we call ourselves the Dolly Mamas. And the Dolly Mamas came into existence when Ellen Davenport was our senior minister, because we said we want to support your success as a new woman senior minister. And the fact that she graduated from Baylor made me really want to support her. And so Ellen, of course, moved on a long time ago. We know she's the senior vice president of communications at Unity Village, which is also shut down right now. And so what the Dolly Mamas have become is a prayer group. And we started out just saying prayers for each other, our families, or that sort of thing. And then somebody said, are you willing to pray for me? Are you willing to pray for us? Are you willing to pray about? And I will say that we've been together probably 15, 17 years. We probably get somewhere between 75 and 100 prayer requests a year, and that may be on the conservative side. But the point is, and this relates to what some of you have shared, prayer has never abandoned us. And so this is not the time for us to abandon prayer. I think if we ever wanted proof of what an ally prayer is, we have that opportunity right now. So I want to hear from some more of you. All I'm hearing is good news, and I love it, but I'm willing to take any kind of news. So somebody light up and jump in here. This is not a one-way dialogue.
Well, while we're waiting for them, I just want to point out something that you said that it was really meaningful, and that's the idea that prayer has never given up on us. So why would we give up on prayer? You know, people think that, oh, well,
yeah, and boy, if we ever needed it,
and they happen, and then when you have a hard time, you stop praying. Well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, when we think that God may have turned his or her back on us, we want to say, well, I can turn my back on you, see if I pray to you anymore. And all of that does is create a downward spiral. So thank you for that reminder. I have a question that I think would be easy for each of you to answer, and that is, since our topic is caring for the caregiver, I would like to hear one thing from each of you that you are doing right now to take care of yourself. What are one caring gesture? Tell me something you're doing that lets us know that self-care is alive and well in your life. Anybody? Okay, Beverly, model it for them, and then they'll say, okay, if she can do it, I can do it.
Well, I'm very conscientious about my vibration, which is always true, but I mean, like when I wake up, I posted this on Facebook. If I wake up like I did this morning at 4 a.m. and I'm not sure why I'm awake, I just fill my heart with love and I just start pushing it out to envelop the world, because I feel like I'm in service to the world at that quiet hour of the morning. If I'm allowing myself to go into service, then I'm not getting in my head. I'm in love. I'm expressing love. I'm being love. And even today, I just started singing. And, you know, 4 in the morning, my dogs are not here for me to wake up anymore. And, you know, nobody can hear me.
Yeah.
And I just started singing that Karen Drucker song, I send my love over the mountains. I send my love over the sea. I send my love into the heavens, and it returns to me. And then the one, it's from the Wings of Song. It's love, 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 love. It says the words actually go, the gospel in one word is love. And I was singing the answer in one word is love. And so I was just having a good old time and keeping myself relaxed and in good, you know, I'm not going to get tensed up and bound up and, just watching my vibe.
See, and nobody cares whether you were singing off key or not.
Nobody will know because they'll never hear
Nobody
it.
will know. It just was beautiful music coming from you. So Beverly woke up singing at 4 a.m. Let me hear from some of the rest of you. Give me an example of what you're doing to care for yourself.
Not only was I caring for myself, I was caring for my mother and my younger brother. And I had went grocery shopping for them. And I decided to make a low-calorie chicken spaghetti dinner for them, which is why I was running a little late because I wasn't keeping up with the time. And before I knew it, it was already like 6:05. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was taking care of my family.
What a great way to do it. I have a daughter and granddaughter who live very close by, and they're doing my grocery shopping. And my daughter, I love to bake, but I don't like to cook anymore. And so a couple of times a week, she shows up with these beautiful casseroles that have all these weird things in them, like vegetables, which I would not normally do. But it's wonderful to be on the receiving end. And in return, because I don't like to cook, but I do like to bake, I bake cookies, cupcakes, or something almost every day and give them away to neighbors, to kids, to the firefighters. In fact, I sent some yesterday to my 2 grandsons at A&M, and I called them and I said, here's the deal. There's about 10 packages of cookies in this box that's coming to you. And I'm going to ask you to call your campus EMTs, your police officers, your infirmary workers. And even though you're sequestered, the EMTs have an ambulance, the cops have a car. Tell them to say, let me know when you're coming by and I'll have your cookies out here. So I don't do the like your mom, like you're doing and fix meals, but I do like to bake. And so far there's been no shortage of people willing to accept the calories. Heidi, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do when I'm still in bed, I do some yoga exercises.
Oh my gosh.
And then I get up and light a candle and I read the Daily Word. And I also read my husband left me lots of writing, and so I read one of those and think about it, and so that's where my morning goes.
Well, you know where that line from that old movie, You Had Me at Hello, you had me at yoga. I'm so impressed. I get out and walk the 1.5 miles around my neighborhood, but love you for doing the yoga. Thank you for that. All right, Dave. Oh, we got David and Dave. What are you guys doing to take care of yourselves?
Which one of us do you want?
Oh, Dave, go for it. Dave Hubbard, go for it.
I'm finally able to hear you. I don't know if you were talking to me earlier, but I wasn't ignoring you purposely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's interesting that you spoke to Hetty a moment ago, because I'm actually working on a project that's a collection of writing that her husband did, spiritually oriented writing, which I've been working on reformatting, and it's been wonderful because the writing is something that he actually dictated from beyond, and it's fabulous writing. In fact, I periodically share it with the folks, but that's not only been wonderful because I'm moving forward with the project, but it's obviously in the process of editing this. I'm reading all of it very, very carefully. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I wanted to thank you again, Hetty, while we got you here. It's been a fabulous project, and I'm really enjoying working on it.
What a great collaboration. I love that. Thank you, Dave.
If you don't mind, I can read one of them.
That would be perfect.
Just a minute.
Okay, while she's gone, David Russell, this is your chance to jump in.
Thank you, honey. Well, it's interesting in my situation. I'm not the, I'm specifically, I'm not the caregiver. I'm the one who's being cared for. Part of what I'm doing is usually trying to be the least burden that I can be in trying to be cared for. But I also found your question very interesting. I like a good question. And the question to God, or the answer from God, why not? I find that a very interesting, and I'm going to have to think about that one. Why not?
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Mandy, let's
well,
see you
I'll
for a
tell you,
minute.
when I started down my own journey, David, as a caregiver, and I did the why me, why this, why now, and God kept saying, why not? What you'll hear when I have the opportunity to join you later this month is those 5 years as Tom's caregiver were probably the most transformative years of my life. And though it was a role that I insisted of that I must come kicking and screaming into, I thought, how many times is God going to roll his eyes and say, one of these days that woman's going to get that I'm trying to help her here. And the truth of the matter is the caregiver's journey. And what you'll hear on that Sunday is the role that Unity's 5 principles played in helping me thrive and survive on my role as a caregiver. And I'm assuming, am I looking at David's caregiver on the screen now? Can you see her?
That's right.
Yes, you are.
What's your name?
I'm Mandy.
Mandy,
I'm
what do you
Mandy
do to
Girl.
take, I know already that you're a great caregiver for David. What do you do to take care of yourself?
I try to just cut myself slack, and if I don't feel like doing something like keeping the house spotless or things like that, I don't do it. And I mean, I found I had to, and it has. A lot of people don't know this, and Dave might shoot me, but we were about to get a divorce when Dave became so ill. And let's see, at the time, how many years? Maybe we'd been married 25 years. We've been married 32 now. And it really did save our marriage. And I won't say it's been hard, but it really, you really do find that you love your mate.
It takes love to a whole different level, because as a caregiver for a husband with Alzheimer's, I saw a husband that I had never met before. And so learning to love this new person that Tom was a challenge, but it was again, and you'll hear this later this month, it was probably one of the most uplifting journeys of my life. And if being a caregiver saved your message, I promise you right now, I'm going to be sharing that one in the future. That's one of the best I've ever heard. So thank you so much for that. All right, Heidi, what you got for us?
Okay. The eternal dance of life. The efforts you put into any project will always provide benefits which extend beyond the expectation. In effect, no efforts are without the rewards. For as we have been saying, they send the ripples far out into the ethers and time and space and touch others who would seem to be far removed and completely unknown to you. Everything affects everything else and all responds at once. The old concept of duality becomes lost in the unity of truth. Thus, your every thought and intention are important to all. We have been showing you the infinite scope of the interweaving, implicit in all of creation. The tapestry which it creates reflects such form and organization as you could hardly imagine. The richness of its texture and beauty could perhaps be described as a composition of an ultimate celestial symphony, which in truth it is. The sonorities and colors, however, are not fixed, but fade and blend continually into each other and with eternally changing rhythm. It is the highest expression of beauty and joy, of melancholy, sadness and despair, of pain and anguish, and these blend into the most intense of expression. Every emotion, every theme is essential to its composition. No consonants or dissonance is out of place, no stress or anguish, no hushed or placid phrases. This is the symphony of creation, of life itself in its fullest, most complete form. It is a landscape which completely exceeds the artist's brushstroke, or the searching for words to express a poet's deepest longing. Your own theme, whatever it may be for the moment, is always included and speaks in ever-changing, ever-interweaving phrases of inexplicable depth and vastness of range. This is the ultimate drama of the playwright, the grace of the choreographer, the skill of the architect, and the genius of the mathematician, all collaborating to express the triumphant beauty of creation. This dance of life is eternal and is all that is.
Heidi, I have this vision that your husband and Tom are up in heaven writing poems, and every time you read one or I read one, they're kind of elbowing each other and saying, ha ha, very good. And Dave, now I understand and appreciate why this is such a fulfilling experience for you as well. So hey, here's the way I want to kind of close out my time with you tonight. Beverly, you know Stephen Dunn.
Yes.
Okay, we have a guy at Unity who's mostly retired, and late in life, he started writing poetry, or as he likes to say, poetry started writing him. And he's actually published 2 books of poetry now and does this. And what he does every Monday is to send out a poem. And the poem he sent out this morning, I texted back immediately and said, Stephen, do I have permission to share this with these people at Unity of Kerrville tonight? And he said, of course you do. So this is his poem titled Hard Cold Facts. I'm searching the world over for just a little good news. Somebody that's happy and positive and has an optimistic point of view. I know that negativity is the mood of the day, but I prefer those folks with the attitude that all is going to be okay. Why not tell us about the number of survivors and how they made it through, giving us informative hints of what we might well need to do? I know there's a large audience that thrive on hearing the worst, but I thank God every day that I did not inherit that curse. I will not waste my precious life listening to gloom and doom, even though there are those who have a TV in every room. How each of us gets through this is a very personal thing. However, I would prefer watching old movies where everybody dances and sings. I will leave all of those sad details strictly up to you, for I know I can manage just fine if I only hear very few. Each of us is different, and I certainly thank God for that. But I know I will be far more happy without every hard, cold fact. So that's the way I want to conclude my time with you. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you, Beverly, for this opportunity. Thank you for setting aside this time to let us hang out together. And now I'm more eager than ever to join you on the 26th of April. So Beverly, it's all yours now, girl.
Well, I just wanted to give everybody a chance to make any final observations or comments that might be something they wanted to mention. And Dottie, you know, you didn't tell the story. I remember Tom telling it to me about when you guys met the next time and then the letter he wrote to you, and you were both thinking about each other and not quite sure. And do you know what I'm talking about?
Sort of.
Well,
I
it
do
was his
know that I
story.
did just pour my heart out to Tom because this was before cell phones. And so we were writing letters back and forth between Washington, D.C. and Plano, Texas. And, you know, distance kind of freed up my tongue, and I was much more authentic than I probably might have been face to face. And Tom was really the same way in his response. And I kept saying, okay, God, if this is the man that I'm supposed to hook up with, aren't I supposed to hear bells and whistles and stuff? And then a good friend reminded me, because she had been working with me on this, because I had been divorced about 10 years at the time. And I said, I'm really ready to have somebody else in my life. And she said, so what would that person be like? Well, I could tell you everything he needed to be. And she said, well, given that that person is not in your life right now, who would you need to be to attract that? And I said, one of the conclusions after a whole lot of work was, first, we're going to be best friends. And then and only then will we see if there's a spark. And then if there's a spark, all the heavens will break loose. So all that time I was renewing this great friendship with Tom Gandy, I kept saying, well, where the heck are the bells and whistles? And then I read my own notes and it said, first, the friendship thing had to be there. But I also think, Beverly, that writing letters, distance, one like even I didn't even have to say it out loud on the phone. And you just get very courageous when you start writing all this stuff. And then Tom gets back and I'm like, did I say that to him? Did he say that to me? But whatever it was, it worked. We were married for 28 years, so it worked.
Well,
And don't
and
ask me any more questions, Beverly, because I might not remember the answer.
I know. I guess maybe Tom told me that story. He was very excited about that moment of when you both revealed your deeper feelings. But your love with Tom and Tom's love for you was palpable. You know, it was wonderful to be your friend and be in your presence and be able to enjoy the both of you, even as he was beginning to slip away. You know, he was always trying to be present, and he was always trying to be available to people. And how may I help you? Is there some way I can be of service to you? Even as he struggled and even as he relied on you for so much of his day-to-day support, he still wanted to be of service to other people. And that was just the man that he was.
He did. And I will say, I fell in love with a whole different side of Tom that I'd never seen before as a caregiver for somebody with Alzheimer's. And as I say, and as you will hear in a couple of weeks, it was the most transformative experience of my life. And folks, I'll turn 80 in June. So for me to say that was the most listen, I've lived a long time and I've had a lot of really cool stuff happen in my life. But that was my 5.5 years as a caregiver for Tom was clearly the most spiritually transformative of my life. And I look forward to having you get to know Tom from a totally different perspective in just a few weeks. And thank you, Beverly, for the chance to get to meet these folks. No wonder you love being in Kerrville.
I surely do. And I love what you said about you fell in love with him in a whole new way. I mean, during all of that as his caregiver. You know, I think that's a testament to who you are and the fact that you took that why not me very seriously.
And Heidi, I will tell you that sometimes what I would do with Tom because he didn't remember a whole lot of things, but this book of poetry that he gave me, sometimes in the afternoon when he was just sitting quietly in his recliner, I would just take this book of poetry and put it in his lap. And the man connected with it for 30 or 40 minutes. And normally his attention span would be 5 or 6 seconds. But it's like he knew that, anyway, he connected with the poetry that he had written all those years before. So it was it was an opportunity to give the poetry back to him in a way that made a difference for him too. So
He remembered the connection from which the poetry
yeah.
was
Although he
received.
might have looked at me and didn't have a clue who I was in that moment, but he knew that he was talking about this woman he married in this poetry. So
That's beautiful. Dottie, I love you so much, and I really appreciate you being here with us tonight. And thanks everybody for coming online tonight and participating. And thank you, Hetty, for reading some of Clarence's work, and Mandy and Dave and David and Mark, everyone who contributed to the conversation. It's really been very valuable and very rich.
oh wait, Beverly, everybody, while I have you here, is Beverly not a brand new senior minister license? Let's give her a hand, everybody. Come on, let her hear those claps up there. Woo, we're proud of you.
Thank you, Dottie. I think we're over it, though. It's been a week
Nah,
now.
you don't ever get over that.
It's been a whole week, you know.
No.
It's old news. So much has happened since then.
Okay, I look forward to seeing you guys shortly. Have a great
Yes.
evening and go look at the full moon.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks everyone for being here.
And thank you.
My pleasure, Hetty. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.